Welcome to the Vibrant Couple. I have invited Christopher Sunyata, who's been my teacher for the last 5 years, to talk about manning up. This video is both for men who want to man up and for women who want their man to man up. Welcome, Christopher. What do women need from men? And I want to make sure I ask the question not from the Me Too movement, but from what women really need from men, and in many ways are not getting these days.
The essence of, say, manning up is creating enough space for other to actually exist.
It seems to match what women want from men, which is presence.
It's absolutely presence, and it's not an artificial posturing or how do I have to make this look. That might be the way that people practice this a little bit in the beginning. But presence is another code word for consciousness. And I would say consciousness is really all about freedom. It's a man's capacity to demonstrate and rest in his true absolute power and freedom in the present moment, regardless of what the hell is happening. And women who are more identified with life itself, with the force of life living through them, they're going to be attracted towards someone that isn't immediately distracted by that or overwhelmed by that. That there's a reciprocal meeting of that intense desire to be known and seen and loved with the knower. And it's not a hard thing to do, but what it does mean is there's a necessary decrease in inner self-focus, inner awareness of your own thinking, your own emotions. Not that those aren't important, but you have to learn how to be present with them or there isn't room for her.
One of the words I'm hearing quite a bit from the women I work with is, I want a man who can handle my storms. Is
Yeah.
that what you're talking about that knower that is free?
Yes, yes. And when she's talking about her storms, it means that if she's going to trust and allow her own body wisdom, her heart, her passion to move through her, she needs to be able to trust someone maybe more than she can trust herself that's going to be able to meet that with acceptance and maybe a little bit of guidance. Someone that can pull her into surrendering into the totality of who she is. Most women intuit that they have so much more love they could give than what circumstances have allowed. And also in the realm of sex, there's so much more capacity for what sex can reveal, both in pleasure and connection and spiritual ecstasy, that women intuit. And so what they want is a man to meet them, because you can do a lot of solo practice, and I teach that. It's really essential. You have to know how your body works. You have to know how energy can move through your own body. But there is a longing to be met by another and to do this dance of intimacy or this partner dance of sex. And it's built into us at such a deep core level that most people are walking around feeling something is missing in their life because they know in a weird way that's what your body was designed for. And in many cases, it's the penultimate experience of pleasure, bliss, or freedom that is designed into these bodies, designed into the mind, designed into the emotional system and the heart.
So how can you teach men to, technically last longer, or from a deeper spiritual point of view, you have to be more present and more hold a container for their women, for their
Yeah.
to fully relax in the present moment?
So that's a great question. And what I've found, and I've learned this from my teachers, is the most powerful learning opportunities and transmission of this answer to that question is through direct experiential learning. And in my experience, there were like some profound experiences that totally recalibrated my understanding of what, say, pleasure was, or what openness was, or what surrender was. These were, say, yogic practices or exercises that my teacher was running that recalibrated me into this is reality and this is vastly different than what my mind was thinking reality was, or what I was anticipating reality was, or what I was visualizing and forecasting the future was. There's an immediacy of experiencing in the moment something that is tangible. You know it as truth.
Most men these days are either jerks and likely not interested in video, or they are nice guys. And, how do you go from nice guy to that present masculine that can hold the space for their feminine storms and pleasure?
The nice guy syndrome is we've learned how to be performative. They're often deeply programmed into what they believe is acceptable, okay, and what isn't. And the way you experience what's okay and what isn't is it's almost like your limbic system, your deep core nervous system. This is where anxiety shows up or comfort. Part of the arc of whether you're learning how to approach an intimate partner or how to talk to your existing one that creates this spark of sexual attraction, it's a relearning how to be in your body, how to trust the flow of emotion and not be overwhelmed by it. So when we started about presence, I'll try to wrap this one up, but it really comes down to consciousness. The more you're identified with the free spaciousness of consciousness, the more you have room to practice not being reactive. So there's a deep need in men for release. It's often why most people many men are addicted to ejaculating, is that relief they get afterwards, the pressure, and they just want to go to sleep. You can learn how to neurologically elicit that response through exercise, through breath, and definitely through some sexual yoga practice. And when you do that, you're not depleted like you were after ejaculating. You have more energy, and actually you have a little more bandwidth and space to engage with the world or a woman.
So that learning has to be learned in real life. I've learned a lot through you and from both the in-person and online programs I've attended and from other men's group and other teachers. Are there other ways for men to learn that outside of attending a men's group or an intimacy retreat?
The foundational work is best accessed through meditation and, say, yoga. There is a wisdom and an intelligence that's living you, and it happens at the body level. So when you bring your consciousness into direct union with that life force, there's not room for thinking. It's not necessary. Matter of fact, as masculine beings, we love getting rid of stuff that doesn't serve us anymore. You're not hanging on to your child's toys anymore that you had when you were growing up. I mean, you use what works. And at the core level is there's this mystery of us being alive. And there's also this mysterious urge to sexually express yourself and experience pleasure. And those can be profound inquiries. So solo work, meditation, particularly where you're not striving for some form of perfection. There is an acceptance and allowance of your very humanity and your body as it is, without trying to shoehorn it into some kind of perfect shape or structure or, grinding through pain. It's absolutely freaking insane. And I think a lot of people are causing a lot of harm when they're doing certain meditative techniques where they're just forcing themselves into some kind of pattern. The other thing that you can do is there is also solo practice with yoga. Increase in your body sensory awareness. That means like your somatic awareness. That has direct crossover into being able to withstand her storms. If you can't be in your body and just present with what's happening, it's like that's her internal language. And if you don't know that language, if you can't even make out a few vowels and consonants in it, there's no way you'll be able to take her deeper than she could go herself. it takes a willingness to let go of this cramp of self and being so tied up that it dismantles our sense of being alone and being in a sense of struggle. And you start letting go, and it's a true spiritual transformation of surrendering to what is already the case. And when men stand in that, you're providing something of value in a world that seems to be rife with chaos. There's something trustable in you and something that magnetizes all this feminine radiance.
So, what can women do to invite either a future partner or their man to show up as that present, aware masculine that can handle their storms, that know them, that can claim them in the moment so that they can fully relax into their pleasure, into their juiciness, knowing that the man handles her, holds her?
The data is showing us that more and more women are totally dropping off and abandoning hookup apps. It's just not that satisfying. And matter of fact, I think it's a positive thing that all the sex toys are becoming online and women are really learning how their bodies work. Why on earth would you want to tolerate someone just disconnectedly pounding away and being done a little bit? It's traumatizing. I'm seeing women being more discriminating and actually being choosier in a really healthy way. And that's creating even a greater gulf for where the men to meet those women who have a much more refined connoisseur taste of what they know is possible in lovemaking. There's just a huge untapped area for, I'd say, not remedial education, but it kind of is, to help men catch up to where women are at right now. I mean, and there's a lot of weirdness, going on with guys trying to act extra macho, and there's all kinds of weird reactions going on. But that's frustration. It's not creatively meeting the actual challenge of what's in front of us right now. Women are waking the fuck up. They're becoming powerful. They're taking over large positions, which is a good thing. Men have a very critical role to play in this future, and not just as a 50-50 partner in this area. You can serve and open this planet much deeper in what it's happened in the past. So that's what I'm about. That's what the rest of my life I'm teaching.
Please tell us more about embodied feminine practice.
My wife has been dancing with a group of women that do centrally embodied dance. It has been transformative. There's some good female teachers out there. One that I highly recommend is Nina Lombardo. She's doing some wonderful work. Her website, Way of Devotion. So when you start on this yogic path of really tuning into your feminine responsivity, meaning that your heart and your body are in alignment with what's expressed through your body and through your vocalization, not necessarily your word content, but the expression of energy through you is spontaneous and in truthful response to what you're experiencing and feeling. And it doesn't have a long holding on to the past or accumulated learning and pain from the past. There has to be so the feminine practice, much like it's a meditative practice for men to identify with the spaciousness of consciousness, the feminine practice is one more of the instantaneous being fully present in the here and now, in this very present moment, and allowing life to live you and express through your form. And that includes emotions, your physicality, your words, your eyes, your face, the clothes you wear, the type of jewelry you anoint your body with, the scents, how you bring beauty into your home, and even down to maybe what kind of vehicle you drive. It's all linked into this relationship to the divine she, and that you are part of, and you're never alone. And that's really built up within women's communities and feminine spiritual practice like dance and devotional work that brings your heart definitely into the vibrating presence with who you are. Now, when you're with a man, then, or when you're out in public, there's training to allow this naturalness of you come through. But there's also the Kali with her sword that, if you're not worthy, I cut you down. I mean, just they have to be able to defend their space and, not be getting slimed by guys that are trying to glom on and just hit on them sloppily. There's a courageous woman standing in her power and in her beauty, taking no bullshit. And then, there's kind of this take me if you dare. And you want a man that's going to be strong enough to get in the ring with you. And I know women are listening, they're hungering for that. So that's why I'm trying to build more men that are capable of getting in that cage match with you.
The women I work with either have not done that practice, they know inside themselves it is possible, and because their men cannot show up like that, they are very resentful, or they have done some of their practice, but they're married to a guy that typically is a nice guy and cannot have his head chopped off like by Kali, like you're saying. He doesn't have that strength yet. And so how can you somehow in be in that feminine power and invite your man to show up in that no bullshit masculine presence and lead her towards that place she can fully relax and be juicy?
It's hard to answer a question as deep as that on this short call, but
Please do.
there is an owning of her own sensual nature and her own pleasure, her own appreciation, beauty. That's between her and the divine, and there's a kind of a revealing of that into this joint space with which the two of them live. And so the invitation isn't needy that I have to have you, I'm incomplete without you. There's an expression of her own natural fullness, and his attention and his presence would add to that. But it's not that she's bereft or completely empty without it. So and this is a really deep interpersonal spiritual practice to do this. Because we do feel needy. We often feel we need something and our partner's holding back from us. And that very reciprocal kind of neediness can cause someone to reactively just withhold or give up or not know where to meet it. Whereas the attractiveness, and if you're with someone and you're in a long-term partnership, there was this attraction in the beginning. And it was often that she was happy and she was kind of grooving on the attention. So you can remember what it felt like when that early dating happened. This is one of the weird things about happiness. Everyone would know instinctively and intuitively what it would be like to be fully happy in this moment. We have memories of it. We have visceral experiences from the past. And the fact that we know that means that we're doing something to suppress it in this moment. We're focusing on something other than that. Because often if you have someone narrate like their happiest experience, we just did this in the men's group last night, everyone lights up. Like you can't talk about the thing that made you the happiest without getting happy. And it's an amazing transformation if you ever do this with someone. But it's laying in there latent. And why aren't they experiencing it all the time? Well, they're focusing and thinking on something else. So back to the question you had with say the woman and the husband's not paying attention. Remember and feel how it felt when you first met him. Like maybe even reenact, what it felt like inside. And you can't place a need on him that he has to respond. If he doesn't answer back in the first minute or two, I'm going to give up. This is where the yoga part comes in. You hold that asana, you hold that shape for your own sake, because it feels better to be happy. And you can put on your own sultry clothes, and you can touch your own body, and you can enjoy that. And if he's that dense and isn't pick up on that, then have him get on a call with me. But there's most guys are gonna what the heck's going on? They're not and there are people who will miss that, but you can't hold up your life waiting for your partner to join you in this happiness. Um, there's a responsibility and accountability to own body practice that's spiritual and sexual. It's the other thing I give to guys too. Don't be placing sexual demands on your partner. That kind of kills the relationship. You're kind of responsible for your own sexual life force, your own sexual pleasure. It's nice to share it and experience with a partner. But if you don't know how to bring that in your own life and you're pissed off that you're just solo masturbating, then you don't understand what solo or personal own body sexual practice is. And that needs to be demystified and turned into something much more wholesome than being less than partnered sex. Because once you really know how your body works and you have a sense of fullness, then there's an invitation. There's not a neediness that I gotta ejaculate or I need this my partner to do something for me. There's a if you go back to when you first were dating, yeah, you would want something. There's an exchange, but you were kind of bringing a fullness of both of you were full. Usually is how you approach that, you know.
So at the beginning of a relationship, typically it is polarized.
Right.
And by bringing that memory, that yearning, without the usual resentment that builds up when we are not fulfilled, then that invites, from her perspective, his masculine, and from his perspective, her feminine juiciness and radiance.
I think that's a really nice summary, and that's true. And because we've been there before, um, we know it's possible. We're just doing something else. And humans are these really interesting mechanistic machines in a way that we're really sensitive and aware of new stimuli, new senses, new taste, and they give us a nice little dopamine bump. And it encourages us to seek that thing out again. And then once we've experienced it multiple times, you know, we know how neuroscience works, the payoff and reward starts decreasing. So there is a piece to novelty and keeping it fresh. And in many ways, the masculine side of responsibility in that is being in the moment and being free in the moment enough that you're not dragging all your past with you. You're seeing the creative possibility and potential in there that comes about through meditation and yoga. And the feminine side is experiencing this moment as also, this moment has never occurred before. It's never occurred in this body in this moment in time. And this heart has never experienced this texture, this yearning, this particular pain even. I mean, positive or negative. We also don't categorize these things. Good intimacy yoga opens to the dark, the light, the painful, the pleasurable. These are all textures. If you're trying to just play it to one side, you're not going to get the full spectrum. And matter of fact, you're going to paint yourself into a box and you've got this really small, range of what's acceptable. And you'll get pissed off when you're not getting it then. So we're bringing more freedom into this whole play, and there's practices to do that.
So let me make sure I understand. And this is what I'm doing with my client. Please let me know if that works.
Okay.
Most of my clients typically are very stuck in their own ways and are pissed with each other about it. And, there is no novelty, there is no this, no that. And I invite them to create practices to change that narrative. And basically, setting a practice is, at that time for that long, we're going to do that improv and be free playing in that improv of course, with a few parameters. Like, for example, sometimes it's good to have no sex, sometimes it's good to have no that, or sometimes, but basically, and so how does that, what I'm describing matches what you are inviting?
Really positive to set up. So just to even have a structure where you're going to actually do something, it's different than your usual nagging at each other and disappointment. The fact that someone cared enough, and if you're holding more, if the masculine partner is holding a little more the traditional side, ideally they're the one that's setting the structure up, allocating time, and non-reactively ensuring it actually happens, even if your partner tries to sabotage it and reschedule all the time. That's part of the dance. So there's a play with structure, and then there's the unknown and the nakedness of being with your partner through these practices. That could be as simple as just looking into each other's eyes for an extended period of time. And that's really where we begin. And just that simple act will bring up all that limbic system, all the emotions. The thoughts that come up are the tip of the iceberg on top. Really what's going on, if your mind is racing, is that your heart's beating, your emotional system is running much faster than what your mind is running. And then underneath that is your body is trying to process all this excess energy from someone putting their full presence on you.
Yeah, so coming back to the title I'm proposing for interview, Man Up, it's about the nice guy or the one still having nice guyness in him to basically have the balls to invite his partner to do a practice.
Absolutely.
And for her to basically trust him enough that in the practice she will be held more than he typically holds her and rewire each other's brain, nervous systems as a result.
Yes. And so we use finding his balls or having balls is a little pejorative sometimes, but there's something very practical and viscerally true about that. And having true sensory awareness of a man's testes changes things. If he's feeling their real presence, just if he had like 10-15% of his awareness on it, that's 10-15% less awareness on his thoughts. And she'll feel that. She is like intimately connected through this invisible carrier wave of body to body communication with how much of your awareness is trapped in discursive thinking. And nothing repels her worse than useless discursive thinking when you've got the goddess sitting here in front of you. Why on earth are you thinking when she's ready to rip her clothes off and give you the world? But she'll want to claw your eyes out if you're still thinking all the time and wondering what to do. That's not where this practice happens. It happens at the body-to-body level. And again, the introductory practices that I teach and focus on men is how do you do that? Because most Americans are so identified with the contents of their mind, they're spun up through repeated device use, that they don't know who and what they are apart from this constant parade of thought. And you can't have great sex if you're thinking. There is relief from that. I mean, anyone who knows like extreme sports, I love riding motorcycles, I love riding them fast. I've liked mountain climbing. If you're climbing bare rock and you slip and you actually have to use that belay line, there's no thought. That's actually one of the beautiful pieces of bliss in that, even if you get your hands cut up and you're banging and slapping up against the rock. There's no thought in those moments. So guys, realize that is your place of power. If I'm riding a bike and I'm carving corners through the mountain and the Rockies, and I'm breathing and feeling the line, there's no room for thought. I'll die. So good sex is, or even good partner practice is exactly like that, and that's the freedom you want. That's your innate state, and she can help you get there.
Because the number one thing that women want to have good sex is to be led out of their discursive mind who is constantly overwhelming
Yes.
them.
Yes,
And preventing them from having pleasure or even orgasms.
that's exactly right. And unless her partner, man or woman, has more space and freedom inside to magnetize and help drain away that thinking so she can fall into her body and her bliss, she might as well just be rubbing it out on her own. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
No, this is what's happening with more and more, young men are not dating anymore. Women who they get divorced in their 50s do not want to get remarried or even
Yeah.
date. So this is very practical and societal.
So the last co-ed workshop I ran, I had a couple people come up to me afterwards, and these were fully clothed workshop, and it was some of the best sex they've ever had. And it was just conducted through presence and breath. It's really where the foundation of great intimacy is this interplay between consciousness and the surrender of all emotion and heart to another. And this dance is one that can be done at any age. But if the younger you are and you start it, the better you'll be equipped and skilled. And there's so much more to life than just sex. But for most humans, if you haven't mastered sex, everything else is going to be partial substitutes. And you are at a human point in history where there's more information available. There are sacred esoteric teachings available to people. There's also a lot of charlatans out there and a lot of people imitating. But I tell you, this was an unprecedented time in history. And if you are wanting to meld your spiritual realization and the embodied expression through sex, there's never been a better time to have this available. And I wouldn't settle for less, frankly.
So what I'm hearing is no excuse for nice guys to not man up, and no excuse for women to not learn to see their masculine partner as the divine masculine, so he
Yes.
can show up and fulfill these big shoes.
Yes. And let's put a final touch on that. So the nice guy syndrome, men who are the nice guys and feel they're being challenged to man up, have within them the essential ingredient. It's not a hard dick. It's a heart that is accessible and dynamically responsive to others. So if you're a nice guy and you're hearing this, you've got the right equipment. It doesn't matter what is below your belt. That is the right place because you already are feeling others. The thing is now how to take that innate capacity, which a lot of people don't have, and turn it into an art where the sexuality becomes this expression of your deepest longing, your deeper needs. And that love that's really hidden within the shell of, say, the nice guy, can be released, and you can stand in your full, darker power as the man that you are. You just haven't had it modeled, you haven't been invited, and you sure as heck probably haven't seen many examples of it. But we're here to change that.
It is scary and really worth it.
It sure is. It's a hell of a
So,
ride.
so Christopher, yeah, so thank you for our time together. I'm going to list in the description below your upcoming co-ed workshop in mid-November. And hopefully many people will be turned on, and I'm using that word intentionally,
Yes.
will be turned on by that invitation and our conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Valdo.
If this video inspired you to liberate more love, please hit the like button below and subscribe so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. And please share with all you believe would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.